like, is that even medically possible, basically, where can you get that far with a hanger? I'm like, by the time she found this letter, I said, no way, no way. There is no way in hell. There isn't. I was like, just close the book right now. Just end it, please. My gut feel is that he really planned it out. Hello, welcome back to my YouTube space. My name is Kacha, as always. The book that I'm talking today is called Verity. I got this book, actually my friend got me this book. Oh god, I was supposed to return it to her last week and I forgot. Anyway, shout out to my friend Nedinso for the book. When the book started, I was just like a bit confused. I was like, okay, like what's going on here? Like, is this what I wasn't sure. I think because I didn't like Google anything about the book. I just said recommendation from her. And I know someone else as well that mentioned that the book is really good. So I was just like, it has to be good, right? So let me just check it out. And the book started with this girl that basically just witnessed a car accident, and some body parts were spilled, and obviously there was a lot of blood on her body. Trigger warning, I apologize. And I was just like, I don't understand. Like that was really like, it got very intense very quickly. And it started developing. Turns out she's a writer. I'm just gonna give you the whole gist. Turns out she's a writer, and then she's a struggling, can I say struggling writer? She's a struggling writer. She was going to see her agent because somebody was going to come and approach her for some book deal situation or something like that. Anyway, after the accident, somebody helped her out to clean her up and give her like his shirt because she had blood all over her. And then she got changed and everything. He gave her his shirt, which I was like, oh my god, that's so sweet. Turns out that the guy that gave her his shirt, they had like a bit of a moment basically in like a coffee shop bathroom or whatever. Not like that kind of moment, but like they just had a bit of a ooh kind of moment, if that makes sense. He was one of the people that she was actually meeting in that meeting. So as I'm even just in this story, like some of it is just like kind of just it's coming back together. Like, how dare he? Anyway, and this guy's basically saying how his wife is unwell and unable to come, because the wife is like she's like a writer as well, and she has like a series that she hasn't yet finished, and she became unwell. So let us think of like what's her name, the lady that did Harry Potter. Oh my god, it's skipping my mind. Imagine like Harry Potter, right? Imagine like in the series of Harry Potter, or even like something that was as big as Game of Thrones, like the Game of Thrones book. So imagine the person who's writing it, the author falls sick like halfway. So they approached her saying that, oh, she's you know, a really good writer, that the woman who before she, you know, became sick and obviously not able to complete the book, really liked her writing style, and how, like, you know, she's going to be like a really good person to complete the book. The said woman is the husband of this person who is in this meeting, who was a guy that obviously she ran into in the coffee shop. And I was thinking, this is interesting. And the money obviously they were offering her, as someone who's a struggling writer, it was a lot of money. Like, it was, you know, big bucks. This girl basically hadn't paid her rent and she was getting evicted, so she was really struggling. So then imagine somebody just coming out of nowhere, or what it seems to be like coming out of nowhere, and then gives you like this massive opportunity. Obviously you're like, sure, I'm gonna take it. Anyway, it wasn't that quick for her because the contract was going to come with like doing a lot of press and all that kind of stuff, and she's more like inside life, basically. Like, she likes to stay behind the scenes. But anyway, because she's broke, she decides to agree, and she decides to go to this man's house, in the same house where he's living with his allegedly sick wife, to sort of like see her manuscripts, see what she's written so far about the books, and like sort of like try and get in her head, sort of like to continue and finish out the series. Why did this woman go into the house when she went to see the man and his wife, and lots of strange things that are happening? It turns out that this woman is like physically, I don't know if the word is incapacitated, is that the right word? Maybe it's not, I don't know, but it's like she can't move. She's like paralyzed from like neck down, basically. I think everywhere. She can just about move her eyes and stuff like that, allegedly. So anyway, the girl lives in this house, and she's like coming to find a lot of things about the woman. The most important part of this story is that she then gets into a manuscript, like a autobiography that the woman was allegedly writing before she got sick. Now this autobiography is where it gets really interesting. So she was reading the autobiography to sort of find out more about the woman and her writing. Anyway, why this woman gets into this house and starts to read this autobiography that the main writer was writing, and she starts to write lots of very like, just very, I'm trying to think of the word, and the word to describe how crazy, like the things that the woman was writing about. She was writing very explicit details about her life, explicit details about her intimate relationship with her husband. She was writing very explicit information about her kids. And the problem is that this woman had 2 kids. She had 3 children, 2 twin girls and 1 boy. The twin girls died mysteriously, one and then another one, and then the woman after that got paralyzed. So this girl is now wondering, what's going on here? And then you're reading the book that this woman wrote, and she's writing it in a way where she was talking about how when she got pregnant with her twin girls, like when she got pregnant with her twin girls, like she hated how much her husband stopped really paying attention to her personally, and it was really like he was mainly concerned about the children. And she was writing it in such a really dark way. She was writing about how she almost basically got rid of the kids when she was pregnant, and how she tried to use a hanger to do that, and one of the girls then had a scar on her head, and I'm just like, is that even medically possible, basically, where can you get that far with a hanger? I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. But anyway, I'm just like, oh, like it was so dark. Like imagine writing about your kids. And so basically one of the kids did have a scar on her head when she was born, and the doctor was like, oh yeah, it's probably just like a random growth or something, like it's nothing to be worried about, obviously. And the woman was then writing that, oh, like basically that she did that to her child, and that she was the one who gave her the scar. Like it made me so uncomfortable. Like I don't know how. I think this was one of the issues with the book, because then the girl is now getting to learn all these things about her husband, but then she starts to notice like really weird movements in the house. Like the woman's son, who is still alive, is now talking about how, oh, my mom told me not to do this, or my mom said this. And for somebody who is supposed to be allegedly not able to move, you're having a lot of conversations with your son, right? And even one time, like she catches the son with like a knife or something. I think the boy like hurt himself, and it's like, okay, then they went back into the room where the knife was supposed to be there. The knife is not there anymore, and it looks like this woman has removed the knife. Like, what's going on? Like, it was just very weird, very creepy. And at some point I was starting to basically get very jumpy, because this woman is supposed to not be able to move. She has a nurse that comes and looks after her and everything, but all of a sudden things are moving the house, and I'm like, is this a horror story? So anyway, it then starts to get weird, because obviously this woman is writing very intimate relationships about what she and her husband had, and apparently, allegedly, the dude was fine. Okay, so you're now in this house, this man, and if you're somebody who likes a bit of a project, right, you like a bit of a sad one, right? The guy is sad. He's lost his wife, because obviously his wife is ill. He's lost his 2 daughters and everything. She's starting to like obviously develop like some feelings for this man, and yada. And then the woman starts to write a lot of things about when her daughter died, and one of her daughters died from a peanut allergy. And was talking about how basically, I think when they were both growing up, she didn't feel comfortable with like the children, because obviously again she hated the children because they were taking so much of the affection from that her husband had for her. This was what she was writing in the manuscript. And how one of them, I think she noticed that one of them I think she was trying I can't even remember the full story, but she basically liked one of them more than the other one for some reason, and the one that she liked more was the one that didn't have the scar. So she was like saying, oh, she wished that she, how can you write in your alleged manuscripts that she wished that she killed off the one that basically had the scar, and that she wished that she completed it. But anyway, they went to a party, and one of the daughters had this peanut and then died. And I'm just like, okay. And the way she was writing and describing it, anyway, they keep going. She talks about when the second one died. The second one died by drowning, and in the manuscript she confesses to being the person who killed the second one by pushing her off the boat, right? So she pushed her off this boat. They have like this really big mansion, because she's rich. They have this big mansion, and then they Verity is the name of this woman, by the way, who's the main writer. So Verity has this big mansion, obviously, or had this big mansion where she used to stay with her husband and kids. And after the first child had died, she had finally started to get back to herself. So she was just like, okay, the younger daughter, or the other daughter of the twin, and her younger son, then they should go out into like the docks, like on the water. And this woman in the manuscript confesses to pushing her daughter into the water, and she was talking about how basically she didn't feel bad. It was just so uncomfortable. I'm just like, Jesus Christ, what is going on? Anyway, so then it starts to get weird, because then obviously now this girl who's reading the manuscript is assuming that the husband never read the manuscript. That's her assumption, and that he's this innocent man who is this innocent man who has lost his wife and is going through all the stuff, and his wife is now being this evil woman who is obviously manipulating him. The girl now is convinced that the woman is not she's convinced that the woman is obviously not paralyzed, and that she's just faking it to basically, which kind of makes sense, right? Because if you want to kill your children based on the fact that they're taking all this attention from you, and you're basically able, or if you have basically killed your children, which she admitted to in the manuscript, if you're able to, if you believe that, then you can also believe that the woman would obviously be faking to be paralyzed, which was what I was feeling even from the first day, okay, that I started reading the book and she got into the house. I was like, yeah, that woman's faking it, honey. Anyway, this girl who's the secondary writer is now developing feelings for Verity's husband, Jeremy. Jeremy's Verity's husband. So she's developing feelings for him, yada yada yada. And obviously at some point they actually start to become like, they actually start getting intimate with each other, and the man apparently like was, I don't even know whether like from the book if I could tell that he really liked her. I think he just seemed like a really caring person, and he was a bit lonely, so like yeah, fair enough. But I couldn't tell that he felt like this maybe strong affection for her, even though it was written, it seems like this girl was feeling like that was what was happening. Anyway, so this girl is now sick of it. She feels like, this woman in this house, you're faking it, you're suffering this man, you're making him look after you, wipe your bum and everything, based on he's assuming that basically you're paralyzed, but you're lying, right? So she puts a baby monitor in the woman's room based on all the feelings that she has about things moving in the house and just not making sense. She puts a baby monitor in the room, and then one day she finds this woman moving on the baby monitor. So then she goes and confesses to the woman's husband that, Omo, I feel like this woman is lying and she has been moving all this time. I caught her on the baby monitor and everything. She gave Jeremy the manuscript like, oh my god, see, she's been faking it, she's killed your children, blah, 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 all this stuff, right? So she hands over the manuscript to Jeremy, like, go and read it, at least just read the last 2 chapters or whatever. The guy allegedly goes to read this manuscript, comes back and obviously starts choking his wife, Verity. Is trying to kill her. I think her name is Lowen, actually. Now I remember her name. Her name is Lowen. So Lowen comes back, who's the secondary writer, like, oh, don't kill her, blah, blah, blah. You're not going to have a son. Because if you strangle her or start choking her, they can see obviously the hand on her neck and everything. And then they're going to tell that, you know, they're going to be able to tell that somebody tried to kill her. So she was like, just so like put a pillow over her face or something like that. And then no one is going to know. They did, and they killed Verity. Now, if you take a step back, the real problem that I have is that when I was reading, I was like, he didn't really read that manuscript thoroughly, right? If this is the first time that you're reading that manuscript, immediately I was thinking, I was like, if this is the first time, you'd be like, no, it's not possible, God forbid, that kind of thing, right? You're not going to go immediately like, let me kill this woman, right? You're going to be like, this is not possible, like, not at all, like, not possible. Do you know what I mean? If this is someone that you loved, right? So I'm just like, why did he immediately rush to go and kill her? Like, why was, I understand it's anger, but it's like, and also at the same time, why did Lowen not want him to think it through? I think she also had her own selfish reasons, because it was convenient for her for this woman to die, right? Because she had been sleeping with the guy, obviously, and I think at that point she was pregnant for him. They only, you know, mentioned this later, but she was pregnant for him because, yeah, anyway, she was pregnant for him. So I'm just like, it's very, very convenient. So you two murder this woman, right? So that was not, the math was not mathing. Now it gets awkward because obviously after the woman died, they tell the police that, oh, she died in her sleep, because obviously if she's paralyzed, it's easy for you to like choke on your own stuff, right, and die. They go back to the house where they used to live to try and clear everything out, and Lowen goes to this woman's old bedroom and finds a letter. That's where the story just, by the time she found this letter, I said, no way, there is no way in hell. There isn't. I was like, just close the book right now, just end it, please. So she finds this letter where Verity was basically saying how, like, she did not do that she was not that person, that the manuscript was supposed to be, she was really struggling to write, and she was meeting with a writing therapist who was helping her with like connecting back to herself or something like that. And I think the book that she was writing was supposed to be quite dark anyway, so the person was telling her that the best way for you to do this is to try this new writing style where you pretend to be like this super villain or whatever, this really terrible person. and that was what was happening, that she did not kill her child, or like, you know, like it's just the writing, that was a way for her to release her grief. That was a way for her to, so it was like a release for her basically. And I'm like, I don't know, I don't really know, I guess, the extent of how dark people's minds and people's brains can go, but I'm not sure that there's, even me as a person who's external, like I feel uncomfortable reading that manuscript. Like I always want, like it was saying in the book, like when Lowen, the secondary writer, was reading it, she wanted to throw up. Like I was so disgusted. I was just like, oh my god, like how, right? So I just don't, I really want to believe her. I really want to, but it's really hard, because it's like, how, like how can you even stomach what you yourself you're writing? Like how do you do that? So yeah, that was really weird. But anyway, so basically Verity is writing this letter how obviously it was not true, and Verity then reveals that Jeremy had read that manuscript, I believe. Like there was somewhere in there where by the time she, wait, let me just find out. Yeah, so Jeremy had allegedly found that manuscript before, but he didn't know where it was, because I think it was hidden. So because it was hidden, I think Lowen, the new girl who came into the house, had found this and she was keeping it away from him. So Verity revealed in that letter that basically she was waiting to find the manuscript so that she would then take it and take her son and run, because she was pretending to be dead, because otherwise the man was going to kill her, which he eventually did. And it's like, wow, that sounds so believable, but like, rah, I don't know. I think the only thing that makes her story not as believable for me was just that I don't know how you can stomach writing those things about your child, right? The husband bit and all of that, like, yeah, okay, that's easy, but I don't know how you can stomach writing those things about your children. That for me, that's like, wow. But then I guess it's like, if you're struggling so much, obviously I don't understand what the grief is like of like losing a child, which I've heard is worse than anything else, right? So if the extent of that grief, like you need like something that is almost just as ridiculous to sort of release from that, if that makes sense. I don't know. So yeah, but anyway, back to the husband, right? Let's just take a step back. I knew that the husband was an evil person, right? Because even I was telling the story in the beginning, when he met that girl, so the later in the book revealed that it was not Verity, so the paralyzed woman, who chose Lowen to be the person to replace her books. It was the husband. It was the husband. So they also revealed that the husband was also not very supportive of her career. At one point when she was in a meeting with, I don't know, I think it was like a work meeting where her husband was there, her husband was reading Lowen's book, right? So in the beginning, if you go back to the beginning, where the husband saw Lowen, he knew her, right? So he saw Lowen when he gave her a shirt and everything. He didn't introduce himself to say, oh, we're having a meeting later on, by the way, you know, blah blah blah. He did not do that. So he lied that Verity was the person who chose Lowen. He lied that he'd never met Lowen before. So whereas he was actually a really big fan of Lowen and he had been reading her books for a really long time, and the person who really likes her writing style, and so recommended her to finish Verity's book. So that man has been obsessed with Lowen for some time. And this is where the plots just became a bit thick for me, because I'm just like, right? So clearly, if you know this woman, right, you invite this woman to come to your house, because he did not invite anybody. He invited her specifically to come to the house. Why would you invite her to come to the house? She didn't suggest it herself. He invited her to come to the house, okay? And I was just like, and then he was doing all these things to make her comfortable in the house and everything. Just my gut feel is that he really planned it out, and I don't think he was looking for a quick release for somebody to be in the house because he liked the girl. I think he really planned it out, and he really wanted her to like basically fall in love with him, and then somehow manage to escape his life. That is my gut feel. I just feel like he used her to get away from his life as an escape, because if he knew Lowen before he decided to use her as a person to replace his wife in that book, that means he planned that bit. If he knew her and then he invited her to his house to come and stay there and be learning about Verity, he also planned that. If he knew and he had read that manuscript, right, at that point, right, when Lowen gave him the manuscript, right, at that point when she gives it to him, why did he, because at that point when she gives it to him to prove that Verity killed the children, she didn't give it to him to prove that she had been lying about being paralyzed. So at that point, clearly, as Verity later revealed in her letter, he knew about that manuscript. he knew about the manuscript. So at that point when Lowen gives him the manuscript, why didn't he say, oh yes, I've read this before, and I, you know, there's a lot of things that, you know, I need to explain to you. I've read it before, there's a bit of confusion here, I don't quite understand how she could have done that. Why did he then take the manuscript, barely read the manuscript, came back and then decided that, this woman is not paralyzed, right? So which makes me believe that at that point he was just happy to have had the manuscript. So now he has that thing that he has been looking for, which is a manuscript, so that he can nail this woman down. So basically the wife, because the Verity can never have another word, because if you have a manuscript where you confess to killing your own children, that's hard to like deny in court, you get what I mean? So at that point he doesn't even need to, he doesn't need to do anything. He doesn't need to do anything else. So that's why I think everything else I was just like, okay, I wanted to believe that he was just mad and he was filled with rage from the fact that his loving wife, you know, was a person who murdered one of his kids and had all these cynical thoughts about, not cynical, evil thoughts about his children and him and all of that stuff, right? And she was this obsessive, and that, you know, she just happened to have an accident. I was really like, you know, thinking of him like, oh, he's just helping. And then I really deep that, no, this man knew this girl. He knew her all this time. He knew Lowen. He was a big fan of her. He was reading her books and everything. And he brought her into his house. And he had read the manuscript. And he did not tell her about it. But also, potentially, it could be a very straightforward story of just like miscommunication. A very, very, very intense case of miscommunication, which can happen. But I don't know. I don't really want to believe it. I really don't. Something, the maths is not mathing, right? I don't believe that he just simply I don't believe that he just simply did that innocently, found somebody who you're a big fan of to replace your wife, and then they were both, and the thing that was going on, which is a funny thing that nobody talks about, is that both Verity and the husband Jeremy were both looking for that manuscript that Lowen was reading. They were both looking for it. Verity was looking for the manuscript so that she can finally have something to escape and run away from her husband, because otherwise the book would prove that that she was trying to kill, or tried to kill her child, right? Whereas he was looking for the manuscript so that he can use it and nail her down, right? Or he also specifically positioned the manuscript in that room where Lowen found it, so that she could then not like the woman. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I'm saying? I'm really struggling to believe that the husband was innocent because of those reasons. I feel like because he was the one who got her in a coma, so he believed that, because he drove her in her car into a tree, obviously while she was in the car, and then she got into a coma, right, that ended up leaving her paralyzed, but she was faking it. But if you get to the point where you feel like you've driven your wife into paralysis, right, or even if you've driven her and she got into a hospital, let's just say she got into a hospital and she wasn't paralyzed, at that point, like, you'll be feeling so remorseful, like, if you're not a mad person yourself, right, you'll be feeling so remorseful, like, okay, right, like, I've done something terrible, and the fact that she's actually still alive, it's a good thing, right? Like, okay, let's figure out like what is actually going on here. This is what I would like to think, okay? This is my sane self, this is what I would like to think. So I just don't trust, I really don't trust that the husband is innocent. I just feel like he needed an out, and I feel like he masterminded it all. This is what I believe, because I think if he didn't know Lowen, and maybe it was the agent who found her, sorry, and he just decided, and he, like, I thought, right, that he was, or we all thought in the beginning, that she just was some random person that the wife's book company, Verity's book company, found to replace her, then that's fine. The fact that he was the one who found her and decided for her to be the one to take over, that was really weird. Another thing that was really weird as well was the fact that Lowen was waiting for the money, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong if you read the book. Lowen was waiting for the money because the book company were going to send her the initial deposit for this huge, obviously, chunk that they were going to pay her for the book series that she was continuing. And the reason why Lowen was waiting for, was still in the house, was because the money hadn't come. So she couldn't quite leave, basically. I don't know, something, a little tiny person in me believes that that man has something to do with the delaying of those funds, because if the funds weren't delayed, she would have been out the house maybe the first 4 days, right, the first 3 days or whatever. But the funds were delayed, and because the funds were delayed, later we got to find out in the letter that Verity wrote was the reason why Verity wasn't able to leave yet because Verity was waiting for that money to come through. So yeah, the end of the story is that they lost this manuscript. That, again, did they really lose the manuscript? I feel like the husband sort of like pleasantly planted it in there for Lowen to find, so that Lowen can hate Verity, right? And obviously if Lowen hates Verity and he's in love with Lowen, then it's easy for him to be like, oh yeah, my wife is so terrible, and she'll feel really bad for him, like, oh, your wife is such a terrible person. Obviously the whole fall in love thing happens, and then yeah, they run off into the sunset. So yeah, it's just I really was thinking that the wife was such an evil person, because I was just like I was saying, I find it so hard to believe that anybody can genuinely write those things about their child, like regardless of the extent of your grief. But the fact that that husband knows or knew that woman, I believe that he planned it all. Yeah, it's something in my heart tells me that that's what happened. So yeah, that's the end of this book review. I don't really remember the big details about books when I read them, and I feel like I should really like read books with the expectation that I'm going to do one of these reviews, so that I can actually like make like a very coherent literary whatever. But this is not supposed to be a scholarly review. It's just gist. I'm just gisting to my camera about the book that I read, and I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you watched, listen to, or listen, no, wrong medium. If you have read Verity, let me know your thoughts. I heard this has like a cult following, and lots of people have been sort of reading it, and it got really popular on TikTok. So yeah, let me know if you're reading this. Let me know your thoughts. I would be so happy to hear them about Verity. Leave some comments, share to your family members, your friends. Comments, I've said that already. Like, yes, subscribe. All right, bye.